Hi, welcome back. Today we're looking at the deadliest snake bite cases ever recorded. From a tourist who booked a relaxing snake massage and never came home, to a man who documented his own fatal snake bite instead of going to the hospital. But first, we start with a woman who brought danger into her own bedroom one snake at a time. It was 12 July 2016 in Nashville, Tennessee, and the building manager had been putting off the call to police for 2 days. Sevryn Beckett was 29 years old and had grown up in a house in rural Tennessee that smelled like aspen bedding and live prey. Her mother, Carell, had been a licensed reptile breeder for 20 years. Corn snakes, king snakes, ball pythons, and the occasional skink. And Sevryn had learned to handle snakes before she could ride a bike. By 12, she could identify a shed skin by species without a reference guide. Carell had rules she never broke. No venomous species, no animals sourced outside licensed channels. No snake larger than she could manage alone. She told Sevryn that crossing those lines spelled trouble. Sevryn listened. Then she moved to Nashville at 22 and rented a one-bedroom apartment on the third floor of a building that did not allow pets. She brought one corn snake in a carry bag and told the landlord it was a stick insect. Within a year, she had 4 snakes. Within 2 years, she had 9. By 27, she had 16 animals living in enclosures stacked along 2 walls of her bedroom and across most of her living room. The apartment smelled of heat lamps and aspen bedding and live feeders. Her friends stopped visiting one by one. 2 of them told her directly it was the snakes. The others stopped returning messages. I think about what it means when the things that bring you the most comfort start to cost you the people around you one by one. I don't think it's really a good thing. Sevryn did not consider any of this a problem as long as she had the animals. With each snake she bought, she wanted something more dangerous than the last. The monocled cobra was the line her mother had never crossed, and that was exactly what she wanted. The species is fast, defensive, and capable of delivering a full envenomation with very little provocation. Its venom is neurotoxic, disrupting the signals between the nervous system and the muscles, and shutting down motor function progressively. Without treatment, the timeline from a significant bite to respiratory failure can be short enough that distance to a hospital becomes the deciding factor. Sevryn spent a year saving and sourced a single monocled cobra through a private network she had found on an online reptile forum. Not a licensed dealer, not a regulated channel. She paid significantly over market rate and built a secure enclosure for it before it arrived. The first bite came on the 14th day. She was doing a routine enclosure check when one moved faster than she anticipated. It was a dry bite with no venom delivered. She sat on the bathroom floor for 20 minutes until her heart rate settled, and then she decided she was fine. She did not call anyone. She did not call her mother. Here is something I think about with cases like this. The dry bite did not teach her that cobras were dangerous. It taught her that she had survived one. Those are completely different pieces of information, and she took the wrong one. The second bite happened on a Wednesday night, 6 weeks after the first. The enclosure had a 2-step locking mechanism. Sevryn was watching something on her phone during the nightly check and skipped the second step without registering it. She lay down on her bed and fell asleep shortly after. At some point during the night, the cobra slipped through the incompletely secured enclosure and onto the bed. Investigators believe it struck after Sevryn shifted in her sleep and startled it. She woke abruptly and tried to get out of bed, but the neurotoxic venom began taking effect within minutes, progressively weakening her muscles. She collapsed before she could reach the door or call for help. By the time respiratory paralysis set in, she was alone. She did not make it. The neighbor to her left noticed an unusual smell on the 5th day and assumed it was a drainage issue. By the 7th day, 2 other residents on the same floor had contacted the building manager. The building manager called the police. Officers arrived that Wednesday afternoon and secured the area. Through a bedroom window with partially open blinds, they could see snakes and Sevryn on the floor. Animal control and a specialist team responded several hours later and removed the animals before authorities could safely enter. Sevryn was found on the bedroom floor a few feet from her bed. Her mother, Carell, was notified by authorities. The CCTV camera Sevryn had installed to monitor her snake recorded the event events leading up to her collapse, helping investigators reconstruct what had happened. For 20 years, Karel had warned her daughter that some boundaries should never be crossed. The last animal Sevryn ever bought had proved it in the space of one night. The footage was not uploaded to the public in respect to her family's wishes. Sevryn built her own danger, one animal at a time, over years. What happened in Phuket arrived for Margot in a single afternoon at a resort she had come to for a work trip, in a moment she never would have chosen for herself. It was August 8th, 2022, and the afternoon was warm at a luxury resort in Phuket, Thailand. Tourists relaxed by the pool, while visitors booked spa treatments and outdoor activities across the resort. Margot Thorne was 34 years old and worked as a customer success manager for a software company in the United States. After working remotely with the same team for almost 3 years, she traveled to Thailand for the company's first in-person team retreat. It was her first time meeting many of her coworkers face to face. During the first few days, Margot became close friends with one of her teammates, Siobhan. Between meetings, they talked about travel, beauty treatments, and skincare. Siobhan mentioned the resort's famous snake massage and described it as deeply relaxing. Margot immediately said she would never let snakes crawl on her body. Siobhan laughed, showed her photos from a previous visit, and explained that the snakes used for the massage were ball pythons, a non-venomous species known for their calm temperament and commonly used in reptile demonstrations because they are usually easy to handle. After listening for a while, Margot finally agreed to try it once, so she would have a memorable story to tell when she returned home. I want to say this clearly. Margot did everything right. She asked questions, she got reassurance from someone she trusted, she made an informed decision based on accurate information. What happened next had nothing to do with her judgment. The snake massage had become one of the resort's most popular attractions, using several ball pythons rotated throughout the day. Ball pythons are widely known for their calm nature, which is why some attractions use them for controlled public interactions. But that calm nature depends on the snake being well rested and handled gently. The senior reptile handler, who normally checked each snake's mood and health before every session, had gone on vacation for a week. Rather than pause the attraction, the spa manager hired a temporary handler who had very little experience but desperately needed the job. By the time Margot's session started, the snakes had already been handled by dozens of guests that day. They were tired, overstimulated, and stressed from constant noise and handling, a state that can make even a normally calm ball python defensive. I think about that decision to keep the attraction running while the experienced handler was on vacation. Not a dramatic failure, not negligence anyone would put in writing, just a quiet commercial calculation that somebody made and moved on from. Margot lay down on the massage table while several co-workers stood nearby taking photographs and recording videos on their phones. The snakes were placed on her body one at a time. Most of them stayed calm, but one snake, agitated by the flash of a camera going off close to its head, snapped forward and bit down on Margot's forearm. The snake was non-venomous, just as Siobhan had promised. Although the bite carried no venom, like any animal bite, it still had the potential to introduce bacteria into the wound. Margot yelped, more startled than hurt, and the staff quickly removed the snake and apologized. They rinsed the wound, applied antiseptic, covered it with a small bandage because the bite appeared superficial and came from a non-venomous snake. No one believed further medical care was necessary. Margot laughed it off along with everyone else and finished the rest of her retreat without another thought about it. 4 days later, back home in the United States, Margot noticed her forearm had started to swell around the bite marks. The skin was red and warm to the touch. She assumed it was a normal part of healing and kept working through her days, catching up on emails after the trip. By the 6th day, the swelling had spread past her wrist and up toward her elbow. Streaks of red began creeping under her skin. She felt tired in a way that sleep did not fix, and a low fever set in that evening. Still, she told herself it was just jet lag catching up with her. On the 7th day, Margot woke up shaking with chills. Her fever had climbed through the night. She finally went to an urgent care clinic where a doctor took one look at her arm and sent her straight to the emergency room. The bite wound, small as it looked on the outside, had let bacteria deep into the tissue, and the infection had been spreading quietly under her skin for days. If there is one thing I want anyone to carry out of this story, get any animal bite checked by a doctor, even if it looks completely minor. Doctors started antibiotics right away, but Margot's condition kept getting worse. Her blood pressure dropped, her heart raced. Lab results showed the infection had moved into her bloodstream.
What had started as bacteria in a tiny puncture wound had become sepsis, her body's own defense system now attacking her organs in its attempt to fight back.
Margot was moved to the intensive care unit. Doctors tried stronger antibiotics, fluids, and medication to stabilize her blood pressure. But despite aggressive treatment, the infection had already progressed to septic shock before the antibiotics could bring it under control. Her organs began shutting down one by one. She died 3 days after being admitted to the hospital, 9 days after a stressed out ball python bit her arm during a massage meant to help her relax. An investigation found that the resort had allowed an inexperienced temporary handler to oversee the attraction, failed to follow proper safety procedures after the bite, and did not advise Margot to seek medical evaluation. Investigators also concluded that the snakes had been overused throughout the day without adequate rest, increasing the likelihood of defensive biting. The resort was fined for violating safety standards, and the snake massage attraction was permanently shut down. Margot trusted a system that failed her completely. Giselle's case is different from everything before it in this video because every person around her that afternoon told her exactly what not to do, and she did it anyway. It was September 12th, 2021, and the afternoon was hot at a village market in Rajasthan, India. Tourists walked between small shops while local performers entertained visitors with music, dancing, and snake displays. Giselle Mahoney was 32 years old and is a baker. A little over a year earlier, her fiancé ended their relationship after years of repeated arguments. The final argument happened after Giselle became angry because her fiancé had not come home the previous night.
Before he could explain, she picked up a metal garden chair and smashed the windshield of his new sports car.
Her fiancé later explained that he had spent the night at the hospital with his younger brother after the younger man was seriously injured in a motorcycle crash, and while in the chaos of everything, lost his phone and could not contact her. Hospital staff and family members later confirmed his story, but by then, the damage had already been done. Giselle refused to apologize, packed her belongings, and moved out of their home. The relationship ended soon afterward. She later tried several times to contact him and ask for another chance, but he blocked her phone number and social media accounts before relocating to another city for work. One thing I find funny is that grief that comes from something you caused yourself is one of the hardest things to sit with. There is nowhere to put it. You cannot be angry at anyone else, you just carry it. A few weeks after the breakup, Giselle discovered she was pregnant. She chose not to tell her former fiancé about the pregnancy. After giving birth, she placed her baby boy up for adoption through a licensed adoption agency. Only her older sister knew about the pregnancy and the adoption. Several months later, Giselle told her sister that she wanted to take her first trip to India. She needed some time away and wanted to see a different part of the world. Her sister wished her a safe trip and reminded her to be careful wherever she went. For several days, Giselle visited temples, markets, and historic places with a local tour guide. She took hundreds of photographs and often tried to get as close as possible to the things she wanted to photograph because she believed close-up pictures looked better. That afternoon, the guide led a small group through a village market that was popular with tourists. As they walked between the stalls, Giselle noticed the snake handler displaying several snakes. A small crowd had gathered to watch. The Indian cobra is found across Asia and can grow up to 6 feet long. It is one of the most venomous snakes in the world, and its bite can cause rapid paralysis and death if not treated immediately with anti-venom. Wanting a close-up photograph, Giselle walked toward the snakes.
The snake handler immediately told her to stay back because one of the snakes was an Indian cobra.
Giselle kept moving closer. The handler warned her again and explained that getting too close was dangerous. The tour guide also told her to step back. Two people with direct knowledge of the danger telling her at the same time. I always try to extend grace to people in these cases, but that is a hard moment to move past. Giselle ignored both of them. She wanted one quick photograph. Instead of standing where everyone else was, she crouched down and leaned her face within inches of the cobra so the snake's head would fill the picture on her phone screen. In a split second, the cobra struck. Its two fangs pierced deeply into her left cheek below her eye. The snake's mouth pulled away as the handler quickly pushed the snake backward into its container. Giselle's hand flew to her face and she felt the blood running down her skin.
The venom was already entering her tissue. Her face began to swell within seconds. She stumbled backwards in a shock and fear.
The snake handler and the tour guide immediately called for help and rushed Giselle away from the market. She was placed in a vehicle and driven toward the nearest hospital equipped to treat a severe venomous snake bite. The journey took several hours because no closer hospital had the anti-venom and specialist care she needed. During the drive, Giselle became weaker. She struggled to speak. Her eyelids became heavy and she found it harder and harder to breathe as the venom spread through her body. The paralysis from the cobra venom was affecting the muscles that controlled her breathing. Before the vehicle reached the hospital, she went into respiratory failure. Doctors and paramedics were waiting when she arrived, but despite their immediate efforts to give her anti-venom and place her on a breathing machine, Giselle died from the effects of the snake bite before advanced treatment could save her. Investigators later concluded that Giselle had ignored repeated warnings from the snake handler. Her sister was informed and her body was repatriated to Canada to be buried. Giselle ignored two warnings in real time. Friedrich's case is the one that unsettles me most in this entire video because he was the expert. He knew more about what had just bitten him than almost anyone else alive. It was June 14th, 2016, and the morning was quiet at a wildlife research center in Graz, Austria. Scientists were carrying out their usual work as animals were checked before visitors arrived later in the day. Friedrich Bauer was 48 years old and had spent more than 20 years studying snakes. He was a herpetologist and was well known for his careful work with venomous reptiles. He lived with his wife and they had one daughter who had recently started university. Friedrich loved his job because he believed learning about dangerous animals helped people stay safe.
He had handled hundreds of snakes during his career and had trained many younger researchers who looked up to him.
That week, Friedrich had been preparing a report about young venomous snakes. Many people believed baby snakes were less dangerous than adults because they were smaller. Friedrich wanted to examine a young African boomslang and record its size, behavior, and venom delivery. The juvenile specimen at the research center was only about 2 feet long and had recently arrived at the facility. On the morning of June 14th, Friedrich brought the snake out for an examination. While moving it from its container, the boomslang struck without warning. Its fangs pierced his left thumb deeply. A coworker saw the bite happen immediately and rushed over. He suggested that Friedrich go straight to the hospital. Another coworker offered to drive him there right away.
And here's the part that genuinely troubles me. Friedrich knew the literature on this snake better than the people trying to help him. And what he does next surprises me.
Friedrich looked at the small snake and decided the bite was not serious. Because it was a juvenile, he believed it could not inject enough venom to become life-threatening. Instead of leaving for medical treatment, he cleaned the bite with soap and water, wrapped his thumb with gauze and tape, and returned to his desk to continue his work. Over the next several hours, Friedrich carefully wrote down everything he was feeling. He noted the time of the bite and recorded each new symptom as it appeared. His co-workers checked on him several times and again encouraged him to seek medical care. But he continued working and taking notes. He documented his own envenomation instead of treating it. I have thought about this for a long time, and the only explanation I can find is that the scientist in him took over from the patient. He was still doing his job while his body was failing. He believed he would recover on his own. However, the boomslang is a tree snake found across Africa that grows to approximately 5 feet in length as an adult. Its venom is hemotoxic, meaning it destroys blood cells and prevents clotting. A single bite from an adult boomslang can be fatal within hours if left untreated. Many researchers had assumed a young boomslang would deliver a less dangerous bite than an adult snake. By evening, Friedrich looked much weaker. He became pale and complained of feeling tired and dizzy. Small signs of bleeding began to appear around the bite wound and in his gums, but he still delayed getting treatment because he believed the symptoms symptoms would pass naturally. Early the following afternoon, his condition became much worse.
He developed severe internal bleeding caused by the venom destroying his blood vessels and clotting factors.
His co-workers immediately called emergency services. Paramedics arrived within minutes and rushed him to the hospital, where doctors began emergency treatment with anti-venom and blood transfusions. Despite every effort to save him, including surgery and intensive care, Friedrich died less than 24 hours after the bite. His organs had been damaged by the venom and the bleeding could not be stopped. The research center suspended work with venomous snakes while the incident was investigated. Co-workers of Friedrich had been urged to seek treatment but believed the young snake wasn't dangerous. The center later updated its safety rules, requiring immediate medical care after any venomous snake bite, regardless of the snake's age or size. The next case involves the opposite kind of knowledge, a man who had no idea what had just bitten him and kept going anyway. It was November 18, 2020, and the air was warm and humid in a quiet farming community near Toowoomba, Australia. Most homes were dark as families settled in for the night. Darren Lockhart was 35 years old and lived with his mother. For years, she begged him to find a steady job, but he always refused. Friends often told him about job openings, but he never applied. He spent most of his days sleeping late, watching television, playing games on his phone, or hanging around with friends who had similar problems.
His mother worked long hours as a cleaner to pay the bills and often came home exhausted.
They argued, often because she wanted him to help around the house or earn his own money. Darren believed he would get a job one day, but he never did. As time passed, Darren started borrowing money from friends and neighbors. When people stopped lending him money, he began stealing small items and selling them for cash. He was arrested once for shoplifting and received a light sentence. After that, he continued stealing because he believed it was easier than working, and he resented people who had money. I try not to judge people in these cases, but I think about his mother coming home exhausted every night from cleaning other people's spaces. That's certainly so unfair of him. A few days before November 18th, Darren heard that a large countryside home would be empty because the owners had gone on vacation. He decided it would be an easy place to rob. Earlier that day, he watched the house from a distance and noticed security cameras at the front entrance. He decided he would climb in from the back instead to avoid being seen. That evening, Darren climbed over the back fence and walked into the large garden behind the house. Heavy rain during the previous few days had left the grass tall and thick and muddy. The rain had also driven an eastern brown snake into the yard where it was resting beneath the tall grass. As Darren crossed the garden in the darkness, he stepped directly on the snake without seeing it. Startled and defensive, the eastern brown snake bit his ankle with speed and precision before disappearing back into the grass. Darren looked down but could not see the snake in the darkness.
He believed he had only scraped his leg on a sharp branch or a piece of wire. So he ignored the pain and continued toward the house to complete his robbery.
This is where I pause. He felt a bite in tall grass in Queensland, Australia, and assumed it was a branch. Most people familiar with that environment would probably have suspected a snake immediately. After forcing open a back window, Darren climbed inside and searched through the rooms looking for valuables. He grabbed a laptop, a camera, and some jewelry he found in a bedroom. The eastern brown snake is one of the world's deadliest snakes, found across Australia. A single bite contains enough venom to kill multiple adult humans within hours, without immediate anti-venom treatment. As the minutes passed, the pain in his ankle became noticeably worse. He started feeling dizzy and weak. His vision became blurry and difficult to walk. His hands began to shake. He tried to leave the house, but became confused and disoriented near the back patio. His legs gave way and he collapsed on the tile floor before he could escape or call for help. The following morning, a neighbor noticed the back gate standing open and knew the homeowners were away. Thinking someone might have broken in, the neighbor called the police. Officers arrived a short time later and searched the property. They found Darren unconscious near the back patio and immediately called for paramedics. Despite emergency treatment with antivenom and intensive medical care, Darren could not be saved and was pronounced dead at the hospital. Investigators later found signs of forced entry and identified a snake bite on Darren's ankle. Wildlife officers confirmed that the bite was consistent with an eastern brown snake. Investigators concluded that Darren had stepped on the snake while crossing the overgrown garden before breaking into the house. The stolen items were recovered from inside the house. Darren had no idea what bit him and kept going. Braden knew exactly what kind of snake he was reaching for and grabbed it anyway because his friends were watching and the camera was rolling. It was May 14th, 2022, and the afternoon was warm at a nature reserve in Queensland, Australia. Visitors walked along the hiking trails while warning signs reminded everyone to keep away from wild animals. Braden Kessler was 26 years old and worked as a grocery store assistant. He lived with his older brother after losing his apartment because he spent most of his money trying to become popular on social media. Instead of saving his income, Braden bought camera equipment and spent almost every weekend filming videos.
His brother often told him to stop chasing dangerous ideas for views and focus on building a stable life.
Braden always answered that one viral video could change everything. For months, Braden and his 3 closest friends had been visiting parks, beaches, and tourist attractions to film funny videos. Most of them received very few views. Braden became frustrated and started looking for bigger ideas that would get people's attention. I've followed enough online creators to know the plateau is the most dangerous stage when you've put in real effort and the numbers still won't move. That's when frustration pushes people into decisions they wouldn't normally make. On the morning of May 14th, he told his friends that they needed to do something nobody else would dare to do. That afternoon, the group arrived at a nature reserve in Queensland. One of Braden's friends carried a camera, while others simply came along for the adventure. They spent hours exploring the walking trails and joking around. While exploring the reserve, they spotted a large snake resting beside the path. A warning sign only a few meters away clearly told visitors not to approach or disturb wildlife. Braden immediately smiled and said the snake would make the perfect video for his channel. His friends quickly told him to leave it alone. One friend reminded him that many Australian snakes were deadly. Another told him that no video was worth getting bitten. Braden laughed and walked toward the snake anyway.
He said he only wanted to pretend to grab its tail for the camera and believed it would quickly crawl away before anything happened.
His friends said no, out loud, clearly, more than once. And I think about what it says about the grip that audience obsession had on him, that their voices did not register as information worth acting on. The eastern brown snake is one of the most venomous snakes in Australia. A single bite can deliver enough venom to kill 10 adult humans without immediate treatment. Braden bent down and reached toward the snake. His hand closed around its tail, and he lifted it slightly off the ground. The startled snake instantly spun its body around with tremendous speed. Its mouth opened and its fangs struck downward, piercing his lower leg just above his ankle. The snake released its grip and disappeared rapidly into the bushes beside the trail. Braden jumped backward and laughed loudly. His friends also laughed because they thought the bite was part of the act. Braden even smiled and said he was fine, just a little scratch. Within minutes, he became pale and complained that his leg hurt badly. He started feeling dizzy and struggled to stand. His vision became blurry. Only then did his friends realize the bite was real. They stopped laughing and immediately called emergency services. I seriously wonder what that moment of realization felt like for each of them, and I do not have a word for it. Paramedics arrived as quickly as they could and began treating Braden before taking him to the hospital by helicopter. Despite emergency treatment with antivenom and intensive medical care, the venom had already caused severe complications to his nervous system and blood. Doctors were unable to save him, and he died at the hospital 8 hours after the bite. Investigators spoke with Braden's friends and reviewed the circumstances of what had happened at the nature reserve. They concluded that Braden had ignored both the warning signs and his friends' repeated warnings before deliberately approaching and grabbing a wild eastern brown snake.